Hi, good morning. So, who are you? Introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning to you as well. My name is Sarah Young Bear Brown, and this is my sign name.
Oh, okay. I see your sign
Yep,
in.
that's who I am. So, I am from the Meskwaki tribe, the Meskwaki Nations. This is the sign that we use for it. The reason why we use this sign is because our tribe's logo, we have an office, and the picture that you see is of a man with a mohawk. It's on his side profile, so you see that mohawk, and that's why we use that sign for Meskwaki, because of his hair.
So, where do you live?
I live in Tama, Iowa. That's smack dab in the Midwest. It's above Minnesota, Nebraska, Illinois, in that area. I believe Kansas is right below it, and Iowa is right in the middle. So I'm
So,
in the
you were
Midwest.
born and raised there. Okay, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Yes, I was born and raised Midwest. I'm strongly rooted there. I've been here my whole life. So, yeah. I was born deaf there. I graduated there, and I went to a deaf school there. The Meskwaki Reservation resides there. My family lives there. I have two children now. One is 6 and one is 4, and I teach them at home school currently. My youngest daughter is deaf. So, yeah, that's my life.
So, do you have generational deafness in your family or what?
I too have deafness in my family, but my partner's family has more generational deafness. And so my daughter is deaf. My partner's father is deaf. Cousins on their side are deaf.
Okay, so this week we're discussing deaf interpreters. Can you kind of expand a little bit about your background as a deaf interpreter?
Yes, sure. So just recently in the summer, I started working as a deaf interpreter. I had seen throughout Iowa there was no Indigenous interpreters. There was no representation. I've noticed there was a couple of Black deaf interpreters, but really we need more Indigenous representation. So I did contact my friend who was an interpreter and asked if I could be a deaf interpreter at a BLM rally. That was in Des Moines. And so the first time I went, I was as a deaf interpreter, and it was a very rich experience. I will never forget that day that I was there as a deaf interpreter. And so I recently started doing this work. On September 15th, I'm going to be joining in on the RID meeting here in Iowa and talk about interpreting here in Iowa and BIPOC interpreting specifically. Iowa does not have a lot of BIPOC individuals, so we're trying to work with RID to get more people who represent BIPOC people. We're really behind here in Iowa, especially with the interpreting. So we need more awareness for BIPOC individuals. I think it's very, very important. We need to spotlight BIPOC individuals. And I really do care about everybody here in Iowa, and we have to make it better for our future. My daughter is deaf, so I need to make it better for her.
So, let's go back and talk about the Black Lives Matter rally that you mentioned. So, how did you prepare for that? How did you get ready to interpret for that situation before you showed up? Did you watch videos? What did you do exactly?
So when I saw the movement starting, I would watch videos, look online for the rallies, and I decided to show up to a BLM rally, Black Lives Matter rally, and just observe for the first time just to get an idea of what it looked like. And then once I got a feel for what it looked like, about a week later, I contacted somebody in a rally again, so I was there and I thought I could be a deaf interpreter at the rally, and they were more than welcome to have me come with them as a deaf interpreter. We contacted a team of interpreters. That interpreter themselves, they were Black. And so we set up about 4 of us as a team. That was the interpreter that I initially contacted, 2 hearing interpreters. One was white, one was Black, and then myself, who is an Indigenous interpreter. So we went to the rally. We met at their house before that rally, and we discussed what it would look like for the day, who would be interpreting what the songs would be, what the chants would be, and we decided what we would be interpreting. I haven't really interpreted songs at that point, so I had a white interpreter as my team who would listen to the hearing people talk and then sign to me, and I would interpret what they were saying for deaf individuals. So that's how we worked it out. That was the first time that I was interpreting, but it's worked out well since then.
So you mentioned before that there were very few Indigenous interpreters available. So do you see other deaf interpreters or hearing interpreters, either one, do you feel that you have the representation in the interpreting field of Indigenous people, or is that something you're working on?
Growing up, what I've seen, there has not been a lot of representation. There's really been mostly white interpreters.
You're frozen. I can't see you.
Am I freezing?
Okay, so it's better now. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I saw that you were freezing too, so. But I'll back up a little bit. Really, I have not seen representation for BIPOC interpreters at all until just a few years ago. Maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, I started to see more and more interpreters of color pop up. But that is mostly on the East and West Coast. I've been seeing the BIPOC interpreters come there, but we need them here in the Midwest. We need them more here. So I'm trying to work with Iowa RID and maybe different states here in the Midwest so we can get more BIPOC interpreters. We really do need more of them here. The reason why we need them is because we have a similar experience growing up. We've experienced racism, different barriers that come with that, how to navigate through sexism, different things that we've experienced as BIPOC individuals. So we have a connection when I have a BIPOC interpreter and being BIPOC myself. It will reflect the community a lot more. We need to grow our field of interpreters in that way. So I look forward to more in the future.
So do you feel that the Indigenous community is different from the mainstream general American community? What are the differences? What do you feel is special about the Indigenous community?
So we've been struggling with a specific issue that relates to ASL and Indigenous Sign Language. We need more of a spotlight on Indigenous Sign Language. It's native to our land, and ASL has been around for about 200 years now. But Indigenous Sign Language is the grandmother language to American Sign Language. A lot of the gestures that ASL uses and the signs that ASL uses come from Indigenous Sign Language. Indigenous people are a very small part of the population at this point. Do you see me now?
Okay, so we're having some technical issues that I think might be resolved now. Let's go ahead and jump back into talking about ISL, Indigenous Sign Language.
So yes, Indigenous Sign Language. There are different tribes throughout the U.S. There's not one Indigenous Sign Language, of course. And I think I was talking about ASL and Indigenous Sign Language before we dropped off, but ASL, American Sign Language, has to recognize Indigenous Sign Language as its grandmother language. There has been no recognition of that fact. No, not even a placement in a book, not a forward, nothing. No one recognizes that we taught ASL. We taught people ASL back in the day. We helped them develop their language. And really, we do need to spotlight that was an original sign language here.
That's true. We've always heard about Martha's Vineyard, the sign language that was developed there, which led to the development of ASL. But the first time I heard about ISL was this year, 2020. I had never read about this before. I had never heard of it before. I had no clue.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. You didn't know until recently. No one has put the spotlight on Indigenous Sign Language. We need that spotlight on Indigenous Sign Language. A lot of people don't know that we were the originators of sign language here. And I feel like that's an important part of our history. People don't know about it. It's not widespread at all. It's a rich culture that's getting lost as time goes on. We're losing our language, our culture, our people, our tribes. There used to be so many tribes, and now there's about 574 tribes throughout the US, and it's really sad to see that. I care about our language, our people. So we have to encourage the deaf community to recognize that Indigenous Sign Language was the originator. Indigenous deaf people are very welcoming, but still, for some reason, we have to work hard for the deaf community to recognize us. There's not a lot of motivation behind that. And I keep trying to encourage people. There is one group that I'm connected with called Indigenous Ways, and they're a really impressive organization. They are very good allies. They're a hearing run group, and they have different Indigenous presenters once a month, and they spotlight the specific speakers and talk about what their upbringing looked like. And again, this is once a month. And we can share our stories and learn about other people's stories, and I think that group is very wonderful.
That's pretty great. Do you feel that now in 2020, the hearing and deaf community are finally shining a spotlight more on the Indigenous community? For example, here in California, prior to any like social justice public event, we have a land acknowledgement where we say, you know, this land belongs to, and then we mention the name of the tribe where we're standing on their land, and we acknowledge that and recognize that. That's being way more widespread here in California. So it's opening up discussion and spotlighting things like racial justice, economic justice, land justice, food justice, those types of issues. And so everyone is now talking about that as it relates to the Indigenous community. And for example, right now we're having widespread wildfires. And so we're looking back and saying, oh, wow, the Indigenous communities taught us about controlled burns and we ignored it, but look at what's happening now. We didn't follow the Indigenous ways that were part of the tradition. And so now we're waking up like, oh, yeah, we should have followed what they were saying. What do you think?
Yeah, you're completely right. Indigenous people have been warning everyone else for a very long time, especially about climate change. We've been talking about it for a very long time. We've been brushed under the rug, ignored, and now in 2020, you see so much happening with climate change. We've been hit very hard. There's fires, storms, hurricanes. The world is getting destroyed before our eyes, and that's because of climate change. And Indigenous people, again, have been warning for many years now, and no one's listened to us. If you listened to our warnings, it would have been helpful, but no one did. So I hope now people will listen to us after seeing what's happened. I hope their eyes are open to what we've been saying, what we've been talking about. So I do want to talk a bit about Standing Rock. For example, one area we've been trying to warn people about was a long time ago, there was a medicine man who predicted a big black snake in Standing Rock. People ignored him, and it just so happens, fast forward to now, in North Dakota, there is the pipeline. And people are trying to reject the pipeline now, but it was predicted a long time ago. It's our sacred land that they put that pipeline in. But again, our medicine man predicted a black snake. And that blackness was representing oil coming into the land. So again, our medicine men predicted this, and it happened. A lot of our predictions have come true. And we really do consider this land very sacred, and water very sacred. It's 75% of our body. So we try to warn people about taking care of the land. We want to make people aware of what's going on with Mother Earth. Humans won't continue to live here if we don't take care of Mother Earth. She's been taking care of us for so long, giving us food, water, land, a place to live. It's our turn now.
Yeah.
We have to take care of her. We have to heal her. We have to figure out a better way of living in order to help Mother Earth.
Okay, so how can we as a hearing community, as hearing interpreters, support you and support the Indigenous deaf communities? How can we support the Indigenous community at large in general?
I think that you can probably check your local Indigenous peoples, contact them and ask them in what ways you can help. For example, November is Indigenous Awareness Month. So as that comes up, you can check that out. There's a lot of heritage celebrations during this Heritage Month that we have. I know in California there's a lot of tribes there, so you can contact the Indigenous persons there and ask how you can help. Maybe you can go to the tribes, and if they're having any event, you can provide interpreting services there, and you can learn about their history. And I think just being with them more and talking with the Indigenous peoples in your area.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing some of your day with us. And also, I recognize that you do beading work. Can you kind of explain about that?
Sure. I am a bead worker. I've been doing this for 21 years now. It's been a long time now. I'm 5th generation bead worker in my family. It was one of our oldest crafts. We make jewelry, regalia, different clothes that we use for powwows. Every year we'll have a powwow, so we make clothes for that, and that's what we do beadworking for. I learned that from my mom. She taught me how to beadwork. I fell in love with beadworking. I've been doing it for a very long time. I sell my beadworking, and people buy it for those different events that I was talking about.
Where can we find more information about where you sell your beadwork?
On my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find it on different social medias. The name is Sib Creations Beadwork.
So we'll add a tag at the end of this to make sure people know where to find you. So thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for telling us your story. I learned a lot from you already in this short period of time, and we will post all of this on Instagram also.
Thank you.